power, Lord. It is willing, but only you can make me able. Grass withers and flowers fade. The word of our God will stand forever. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Everybody else sing that song. Sing it all right. Everybody, let's just read today. I want you to go to two portions of scripture. Two portions, that doesn't mean it's going to be long. I just want you to see two things. Genesis chapter 16. We'll start there. Genesis chapter 16, and then I want you to go to Isaiah chapter 43. All right? Genesis chapter 16. When you found it, please stand to your feet on the electronic device, your Bible, whatever you want to use, I'm cool with it. Or if it's just up on the board. If you don't have a device, read it on the board, that's fine. But we stand when we read the Word of God because Jesus stood when He read it. And so if the Word stood while reading the Word, how dare I, if I have the physical strength, remain in my seat? If the Word stood while reading the Word, so that's what I'm doing. So, it's the way to receive it. If I receive this Word, in my mind only, it will be dead for me. But if I receive this Word, the Spirit over my mind, it will be life for me. And when your kingdom becomes my priority, its impact will be my reality. Lord, I don't need religious form of fashion. I need life. Somebody say receive life. I say receive life. I say receive life. Amen. Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 through 10, King James Version. Whatever version you have is fine. But it says this. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children. She had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Sarai said unto Abraham, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abraham had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress, or her boss, was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said unto Abram, My wrong be upon thee. I have given my handmaid into thy bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judged between me and thee. And Abram said unto Sarai, Behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. The angel of the Lord found her by the fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way of Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou, and whither wilt thou go? She said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself unto her hands. The angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that thou shalt not be numbered for multitude. Let me stop there. Go to Isaiah chapter 43, verse 1. It says this, But now, thus saith the Lord, that created thee, O Jacob, and he that formed thee, O Israel, here it is, fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name. Thou art mine. You may be seated. I'm going to preach for just a little while on your hearing. God sees your pain and knows your name. God sees your pain and knows your name. This is one of the, I learned so much when I'm reading this text. I learned a lot by reading this text in Genesis. One of the things I learned reading this text, that everything that's a good idea really ain't a good idea. It might sound right. Let me take you back. In ancient times, it was not unusual for a wife to arrange for her husband to have children with her maid. Right? Sarah couldn't have children. She was good enough in age, and she knew that in their culture and time, that the wealth and the security in the family was that the woman bear a child. But if she couldn't have children, she would often, a woman would give her maid to her cousin. And you might remember this also happened in Bilhah and Zilpah. They were maids of Rachel and Leah. These were actually Abraham's descendants, the wives of Jacob. Jacob was his descendant. So it was a common practice then. Sarai, who later became Sarah, had been married for years without a child. So she suggested that Abraham, right, later known as Abraham, take her maid as a concubine. Maid is called Hagar. Now, as we read the text, and fellas, if you've been married a little while, there's certain things your wife may give you permission to do. That you better not do. Honey, what do you think about your so-and-so? Go ahead. Go ahead. That means I better not do so-and-so. And if you continue to read the text, Abram, who became father Abraham, he made the mistake. The text says that he hearkened to the voice of his wife. The voice of God never told him to do that. It was the voice of his wife. Oh, I wish I was better. God didn't tell Abraham to go lay down with her handmaid. He listened to his wife. You know how dumb we get when he probably wanted to do it anyway. So we know how dumb you think it's a good idea. We are older. She is young. He probably went and told his boys, she gonna let me. You know old girl from Egypt? You know old girl from North Africa, the chocolate chip. She gonna let me. But like me, I don't know why Abraham did it, but nonetheless, he did. And we laugh and we chuckle and we say, oh man, I wouldn't have, but a lot of us have done a lot of things we say we wouldn't have done. I've learned to say, don't ever say what you're not going to do. Life has a funny way of presenting stuff to you. So the maid's name was Hagar. So Hagar found herself in a precarious situation. Now understand this. She had no rights and privileges. She could not object to what was happening. Hagar, it doesn't indicate that she was a willing participant. Doesn't indicate that she was employed. This was her employer. She was, Abraham had went to Egypt. If you know the backstory, he goes to Egypt. He lies. Y'all think Abraham lies about Sarah being his sister, and so Sarah was fine at the time, and so Sarah, the king of Egypt said, "Oh, that's your sister. Let me make her one of my concubines. Here, let me give you a whole, And so Sarah was made a concubine of the king, but because it was outside of God's will, guess what? The king and all his court got sick. The king realized this. Abraham, you lied to me. This is not your sister. This is your wife. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you a whole lot of stuff to leave my land. And so he gives Abraham, how Hagar got there. He gives Abraham cattle. He gives him servants. He gives him everything just to get out. Hagar is there not because she wants to be. She's there because she has to be. And now she's in a precarious situation that she didn't ask to be in. So she's there. She becomes a concubine, and so she does it. And but the trouble started when Hagar realizes that she was pregnant, and she begins to take pride in it. I mean, who would? Maybe this is my come up now. I'm married Paula. See y'all this thing? Okay. He got money, and I'm about to have his baby. He comes from a good family. My family messed up, but he comes from a good family. Let me hurry up and get pregnant by this joker. So my baby can be in that family. And so something happened, and it was natural. And she became full of pride. She started walking past Sarah like, I'm having a baby that you couldn't have. It's human nature. And then that's my baby daddy. He your husband, but he my baby daddy, right? See how quiet you got? I'm just trying to make it live. I'm trying to make it live. Oh, he won't be on child support payments the rest of his life. I'm just trying to make it live. I'm just trying to make it live. We're going to be taken care of. And so she this is pride. And so she started making Sarah feel like she was less than. And so Abraham does what most guys do after they're in trouble. Do what you want. Your handmaid, I don't care. This woman's pregnant with your child. So he tells Sarah, do what you want. So Sarah began to treat her harshly, and so Hagar leaves, right? She runs away. The pain, the stress, the betrayal caused her to run away. Let me get to my sermon. With no friend in sight, she fled into the wilderness. In the wilderness, we read the text, she had a divine encounter. Twice she was persecuted. Twice God in this encounter talked to her and gave us and rescued her. Twice she'd been discouraged, and twice he comforted her. Right there, he does it again in Genesis 21:17. Twice Elroi, that means the God who sees, came to her aid. I'm trying to show you something. She was belittled, she was abused, she was demeaned by others, but God lifted her spirit. Twice Elroi, the God who sees, meets Hagar in the wilderness of loneliness, meets her there in the wilderness of rejection, in the wilderness of trouble, in the wilderness of pain. God meets her right there. Twice Elroi, the God who sees, he helps her. He sought her. He saw her. She thought no one cared if she lived or died, but God saw her. He cared. God called her by name. I don't know who I'm talking to today, but God sees your pain. God knows your loneliness. God knows when you feel rejected. God sees you and knows who you are, and like he cares for Hagar, he cares for you. Elroi simply means the God that sees all. She felt misunderstood, but God understood. God listened to her. He understood her plight. God spoke to her about her future and directed her on what to do next. He provided for her in the midst of her pain. Twice, if you continue to read her story, twice she gave up hope. And twice Elroi, the God who sees, appeared to her and restored her hope. Sometimes you don't get it the first time. I thank God for the second visit. I thank God for the third visit. I'm hard-headed. God has come see about me about 5 or 6 times. I'm hard-headed. God had to come see about me a couple times. Showed himself to Hagar and gave her new beginnings. Somebody say new beginnings. Twice she was the recipient of divine promises. You see, understand this, Cornerstone family, friends here or abroad, here live or at home virtually. Life's never fair to anyone. Stop saying it's not fair. What is fair? What is fair? There is no such thing as fair. Life is never fair to anyone. No one is exempt from trouble. If you ain't got no trouble, go ahead and leave right now. Nobody at the sound of my voice is exempt from trouble. So many things happen that we cannot understand or control. When friends and family abandon us, it can often feel like God has given up on us. But you may be going through a season of rejection, a season of abandonment, loss, grief, or uncertainty. But do not be discouraged, because God said, I will never leave you. Never leave. The Bible reminds us that God is faithful. Somebody say God is faithful. God is just, and God is fair. So when you feel forgotten, you feel like an outcast, you feel discarded as worthless or belittled as nothing, be assured that God will uplift you. God will comfort you. God will strengthen you. God will support you. Am I right about it? He knows. He sees you. Elroi, the God who sees, knows exactly where you are in life at this part of the journey. He knows exactly what you're going through. You feel lost and alone. He just gave you and gives her some encouragement. He gives her some encouragement and some instruction in her darkest time. And so he'll encourage you this. So what I love about the story is, first of all, to receive the instruction, she had to get to a place of being totally uncomfortable. A lot of you want to receive instruction from God while you're comfortable. And a lot of times, God will take you to a wilderness. I preached last week about Elijah. God will take you to some place to get your attention. How many times has trouble driven you to your knees and God got your full attention in the wilderness? God got your full attention when so-and-so got sick. God got full attention when so-and-so died. God got your full attention when you lost your job. God got your full attention when the relationship didn't work. God got your full attention. God gets full attention in trouble. God gives Hagar some instruction. And what I love about this Egyptian woman from North Africa, what I love about her is she obeys the voice of the Lord. She obeys the voice of God. She does. How many of us, sometimes God gives us instruction and we don't obey it because it's not comfortable? God told her, go back to the place where you don't even feel comfortable. But I want you to go back there. Don't worry about the child. Listen, the child is going to be, I promised Abraham some stuff. So because I promised Abraham, this child is going to be the father of multitudes of people. But I need you, Hagar, in order for that to happen, you need to go back. We live in a day and age where, we hear preachers preach and singers sing, and we don't ever have to go back. Sometimes God says, I want you to go back to that place of pain. Your blessing is through it, not avoiding it. Your blessing is on the other side of this thing that you've been refusing to deal with. This person you don't want to deal with. This addiction, this habit, this trauma that you want to ignore. Get your head out of the sand, go back to it and visit it because I sent you back to it, knowing that your greatest blessing is on the other side of it. Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. Come on. I know you ain't had the greatest childhood. I know you're still mad at your mama and mad at your dad. I know you got relatives you want to be bothered with. I know you hate that job. I know you faking being sick because you don't want to go back. The Lord said, go back. Go back. Go back, go back, go back, go back. Because it's something that they have to learn, something that you have to learn. Go back because your blessing is associated with you going through. Sometimes your blessing ain't associated with you going around it. Blessing ain't associated with you hiding from it. The first thing they say when you show up at Alcoholics Anonymous is, hi, my name's so-and-so, and I'm an alcoholic. They're facing it. Yes. Right. Some of y'all need to get on your knees and say, Lord, hi. My name is such-and-such, and I'm doing, don't yell that out. Go back, Hagar. So you have to understand that the eyes of the Lord, the Bible says this, and I love this, that she thought she was alone, and God sends that the angel of the Lord shows up and lets her know that listen, the Lord, the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous. Now, Hagar, you did nothing wrong, but follow the direction of those in your employ. I mean, those who have you under their employment. You've done nothing wrong, but obey the folks that you're under. So guess who's righteous in this whole thing? It ain't Father Abraham. Sure enough, it ain't Sarah. What's she thinking? Oh, matter of fact, I don't know what she thinking. No matter what was he thinking. It ain't them. She's righteous. Go back. The eyes of the Lord always on the righteous, right? God created, and I'm going to say this to you in this room right here, Dan. I don't know what you're going through. You might have just came from graduation. But God created you for His divine purpose. Not yours. God didn't create you for you. God didn't create you for your purpose. God created you for His divine purpose. Lord, what's my purpose? You ain't got none, but I have a purpose for you. We got to change the language. We got to change the language. God created you for divine purpose. You are not, let me say this to encourage you, you are not a product of errors. You are not a product of trials and mistakes. You're not a product of that. There's a divine purpose for your existence. You're unique. You're special. Your life is significant. You are important and you are not hidden from his sight. I don't care how you came up. I don't care on what side of the track. God gave you to understand that God gave you the nod to be here. Not only gave you the nod, but you have divine purpose. And here's the thing. Not only did he give you the nod to be here, God seeing the future from front to back to front, what do you say? God said, not only is she supposed to be there, not only am I giving him a yes to be there, you are actually have been born for this time. This is your time. This is your time. You weren't, I wish I was born in another time. You weren't, you were born in this time. There's a purpose for you in this time. So you have to stop celebrating the trials and obstacles of what's going on in culture and start celebrating that, yeah, I was built for this. I was built for the pandemic of 2021. I was built for the recession. I was built for the trials and tribulations. God gave me the nod that I was put here for his purposes. Now as I get closer to him, he reveals his divine purpose in my life so that I can make an impact in the culture that he gave me the nod to be here. Yes, sir. Yeah. Come on, Hagar. Come on, Hagar. You're supposed to be there. Come on, Hagar. Listen. If your heart is grieving because of your pain and confusion, do you feel unloved, rejected, or treated with contempt? Have you been abused by those who are supposed to be protecting you? People will let you down. Have you been misunderstood? Even today, thousands of years later, Hagar is still misunderstood and treated unfairly by many believers who write or speak of her. But God saw her. He saw it all. And in the midst of her hopelessness, God saw her. In the midst of her despair, God saw her. In the midst of injustice and betrayal, God saw her. No one cared for her. Abram didn't care for her. She was just a jump off who happened to get pregnant. Yeah. Talk you up. Abram didn't care for her. Sarah didn't care for her. Even when she ran into the wilderness, no one was out looking for her except the God who made her. The only person looking for her was God. Sometimes the only person looking for you is your Creator. Stop waiting to be rescued. Stop waiting for a knight on a horse. Sometimes the only person looking for you is the God that created you. That's all that's looking for. Somebody come to your rescue. Ain't no check, ain't no PPL loan, ain't no 600, 300, 200,000 a week, ain't no president, ain't no congresswoman, ain't no vice president who don't know who she is. Nobody coming for you. Sometimes only God comes for you. And nobody coming for you. I thank God. God sees me. God comes for me. I lost my place up here preaching. He sees you. Elroi sees your pain. He sees your disappointments, y'all. He sees the times that you're quiet. He sees the times when you're going through stuff. He is not blind to your situation. He sees you. He sees all of it. He sees when your heart's been broken so many times. He sees how others have been hurtful towards you. He sees the pain that you're hiding. He sees every dream. He sees every frustration. He sees every trial. Not only is he the God that sees, he's the God who hears. It's one thing to be seen and not heard. We used to tell kids that. Can't tell them that today. Well, I bet not be in my mom's telephone conversation. You see me on the phone? You She know where the phone at. She talking to Aunt Frances or somebody. I come in the room, she's like, excuse me. Don't ask me a near question. If the house is on fire, I can smell smoke. Get out the room. It's one thing to be seen, it's another thing to be heard. He hears you. He sees the countless tears you shed. He has a record of your sorrows. He's collected all of the tears in a bottle, according to Psalm 56:8. Read that. He collected my tears in a bottle. God has not forgotten you. He sees the despair. He sees the joy. He sees your deepest need. He longs to heal your broken heart. You're loved and accepted by Him, no matter what your struggles, no matter what your failures, no matter what your past is. You are not a failure according to God. According to your Maker, you are not a failure. You are not forgotten. According to your Maker, you are not a castaway. You are not an outcast. You are not born a throwaway. Even when you can't see Him, Elroi sees you. And He's keenly aware of what you're going through. Psalmist said, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil. Not because I see, but I know that Thou art with me. I ride with my staff and comfort me. Yeah. I got to preach that another time. But believers know that. And sometimes you just know what you know what you know. You know, believers, when you have this intimate relationship with God, there's not too much that you fear. Right? All right? You know, like, so Pastor, be careful. And it's like, no, I'm not dying today. It's not the way it works. Y'all remember that movie, James Brown movie? Get on up, man. Get on up. James Brown on a plane, man. They go to Vietnam or somewhere, and the plane shaking and rattling, and everybody's scared. He said, what's wrong with you, Mr. Brown? He said, you ain't gonna die today. You with James Brown. He said, James Brown ain't dying today. I see my future. And those who really walk in Christ, they let people know, listen, we ain't dying today. I ain't afraid of passing out that world today. I see my future. And yea, though I walk, I ain't gonna run. I'll walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I ain't gotta run. I'll walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I ain't gotta fear no evil. Elroi, one who sees you, keenly aware of what you're going through. And here's the thing, God is concerned about what troubles you. Come to God as you are. I gotta wrap this thing up. This might be a two-part. Come to God as you are. It says in Matthew 11, 28 and 29, Jesus is talking. He says, come to me, all ye that are weary and burdened. He said, I'll give you rest. He said, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. I'm gentle. I'm humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls. I love how Jesus describes himself. He says, I'm gentle. He says, I came to the world not to condemn the world, that the world through me might be saved. It's believers that aren't gentle with people. It's church folk who ain't gentle with people. But Jesus is gentle with people. It's church folk that will remind you of your past. It's Jesus that says, I know all about it and I died for it. I still got to preach it for it. So don't get mad at Jesus. It's church folk that'll make you cut your hair, erase all your tattoos. It's church folk that'll make you do all of these things before coming to Christ, where Jesus says, you come to me just all your brokenness, all your addiction, your felony records, your abortion, your alcoholism, your need to get high, your drug addiction, your being a playboy, jumping from bed. Come to me, your homosexuality. He said, come to me, transgender. He said, come to me, whoever you word is that. So he says, come to me. And so he hears you, he sees you, he knows your struggles, he knows how you feel. And he says, come unto me. Listen, you have to refuse to see yourself as a victim of circumstance, according to Romans 8:37. You got to come out of the wilderness of bitterness and unforgiveness. You got to come out. You got to come out. So now God sees you, but not only does God see you, God knows your name. Knows your name. You know, we sing that song. Y'all do such a great job. You know my name. Y'all sing that, right? The whole crowd, you're crying, and it's just something about that song because it's a comforting thought. It's a comforting thought that God not only sees you. There is nothing like someone knowing your name. No, imagine in a room full of strangers. You've been there, I have. And someone walks up to you and knows your name. Right? Can you imagine hurt, lonely, broken heart? He not only sees you, but he shows up. And he says, what's wrong with someone? So he calls you by your name. That's the biggest respect. Like when I ask people, I say, listen, I forgot your name. Can you please tell me? And don't tell me, I don't want to know your nickname. I want to give you the full respect of knowing your name. What's your mama call you? I want to know the full respect of knowing your name. And so he knows your name, right? And so it's a comforting thought that he knows out of all the people in the world, God knows your name. Out of all the stars in the universe, out of all the planets in the universe, God knows your name. He knows you. Out of all of the animals up on yonder hill in the deep forest, God knows your name. The scriptures are filled with God calling people by their name. He called some of them twice: Abraham, Jacob, Moses, Samuel, Martha, Simon, Saul, but not once but twice. Sometimes he had to call their name in each instance. And this morning, God is calling Hagar by her name. He knows her name. She doesn't know his name, but he knows her name. Think about how important we feel when people call us by our name. Imagine God, like who do you hold in high esteem, or who do you have a celebrity crush on, or somebody you hold in high esteem, walked in the place and knew you by your name? You didn't even know they knew your name. But think about it. Somebody, I don't know who it is for you, it could be anybody, but possibly some great world leader will walk in and say, we happen to be fine, how you doing? See you some great work. That would make your heart boom, 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 right? Yeah. And so we have the God of the universe that knows you by name. And so what does it mean, right? The name is why am I emphasizing this point? Because your name is the sum total of who I am. I'm not a number. I'm not a meaningless symbol. I am God's own. I am his friend. I am known by the most holy God, high God. And I'm so glad he knows my name. I am his and he is mine. He who occupies heaven's throne. He knows you by your name if you're a believer. And to know a name is to know all about the person. Now, 9 times out of 10, when you know someone's name, you know something about them. Certain families are known for certain things. Right? The person may not know you, but they may have known your uncle or your father or somebody like that, especially with men. Men, they'll call another cat and they'll expect him to have the character, the high character of the man that was before him. Am I right? If you came up in a family of folk that knew better, there's no pressure on me because I came up with a family of folk that knew better. Right? Even when I didn't know them, somebody would say, I know who you are. You Ralph and Sandra's kid. Uh-oh. Yes, sir. Uh-oh. I'm holding that. Wasn't mine, dude. Wasn't mine. I ain't been saved my whole life. But there's something when someone knows your name, they know your background. He finishes up. God knows you, and he knows you apart from anyone else. Well, it says number 2, God knows you absolutely. Yes. He knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. He knows your thoughts. He knows your deeds. He knows your hurts. He knows your weaknesses. He knows your sickness. He knows your circumstance. He knows your down sitting and uprising. Come on, Bible believers. He knows you. God knows where you are at all times, not just physically, but spiritually. Hagar was sent away by Sarai, but not beyond the seeing eyes of God. Come on now, I don't care where you are not beyond the seeing eyes of God. I don't care how depressed you feel, you are not beyond the seeing eyes of God. Then God called us by our name. He called Hagar by her name. Hagar was evicted, she was unemployed. Hagar was impregnated by Abram and thrown out by Sarah. Hagar was broken by a conspiracy between a husband and a barren woman. Hagar was hurting and helpless with no solution in sight. There were no alpha daughters to help her. Hagar was set up by Sarah and used by Abram. Hagar fell out of favor with the woman who asked her to do a sexual favor for her husband, but God still called her by name. Listen, God will meet you where you end up, and He will call you by your name right where you end up. God knows your name. The question is, do you know His name? It's amazing that God knows my name, but it's salvation when you know His name. Don't miss that. It's amazing when God knows